Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So, we're going to do another battle report read. I actually really like doing these, and I think you guys actually like these too. It's really cool to see their perspectives. So, today we're going to do a fan favorite. We're going to be doing the battle report of General James Longstreet, Lieutenant General James Longstreet. As we know, he's from South Carolina. He actually is a very controversial character in the Confederacy. We will be having a new video about Longstreet coming up very soon. But quick history of him. He's from South Carolina. He goes to West Point. He serves in Mexico. He's actually second cousins with Julia Dent. That's Ulysses S. Grant's wife. He also will be one of Grant's closest friends until the end of his life. Longstreet's very controversial in the South, as a lot of people view him as a traitor, being he's considered to have very Unionist views. However, he did at the end of the day choose to fight for the Confederacy, but he will be one of the first Confederate generals to be reconciled under the Grant administration, obviously. But we're going to be doing his battle report. Now, the big difference between the Confederate and Union battle reports is the Confederate battle reports are really only covering the Union battle reports, I kind of have noticed, cover more so the battle, whereas the Confederates follow the whole campaign. So what we're going to do is, for the Confederate ones, I'm going to actually only do from the, I believe, 28th until post-battle. So in this one, we're going to be discussing his orders to move to Gettysburg to his withdrawal towards Hagerstown. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get into it. Headquarters, 1st Army Corps, Department of Northern Virginia, near Culpeper Courthouse, July 27th, 1863. On the night of the 28th, one of my scouts came in with information that the enemy had passed the Potomac and was probably in pursuit of us. The scout was sent to General Headquarters with the suggestion that our army concentrate east of the mountains and bear down to meet the enemy. I received orders on the following day to move part of my command and to encamp it at Greenwood. The command, excepting Pickett's division, which was left to guard our rear at Chambersburg, moved on the morning of the 30th, and the 2 divisions and battalions of reserve artillery got into camp at Greenwood about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. General Hood was ordered to put a brigade and a battery on picket at New Guilford, on the road leading towards Emmitsburg. On the next day, the troops set out for Gettysburg, except in Pickett's division, not yet relieved from duty at Chambersburg, and Law's brigade left by Hood on picket at New Guilford. Our march was greatly delayed on this day by Johnson's division of the 2nd Corps, which came into the road from Shippensburg, and on the long wagon train that followed him. McClellan's division, however, reached Marsh Creek 4 miles from Gettysburg a little after dark, and Hood's division got within nearly the same distance of the town around 12 o'clock at night. Law's brigade was ordered forward to its division during the day and joined about around noon on the 2nd. Previous to his joining, I received instructions from the commanding general to move, with the portion of my command that was up, around to gain the Emmitsburg road on the enemy's left. The enemy, having been driven back by the corps of Lieutenant Generals Ewell and A.P. Hill the previous day, had taken a strong position, extending from the hill at the cemetery along the Emmitsburg road. Fearing that my force was too weak to venture to make an attack, I delayed until General Law's brigade joined its division. As soon after his arrival as we could make our preparations, the movement was begun. Engineers, sent out by the commanding general and myself, guided us by a road which would have completely disclosed the move. Some delay ensued in seeking a more concealed route. McClellan's division got into position opposite the enemy's left around 4 p.m. Hood's division was moved on farther to our right and got into position partially enveloping the enemy's left. The enemy's first position along the Emmitsburg Road was but little better, in point of strength, than the first position taken by these two divisions. Our batteries were opened upon this position. Hood's division pressing upon his left and McLaws upon his front. He was soon dislodged and driven back upon a commanding hill, which is so precipitous and rough as to render it difficult of ascent. Numerous stone fences about its base added greatly to its strength. The enemy, taking shelter behind these, held them one after another with great pertinacity. He was driven from point to point, however, until nearly night, when a strong force met the brigades of Major General Anderson's division, which were cooperating under my left, drove one of them back, and checking support of the other, caused my left to be somewhat exposed and outflanked. Wolford's brigade of McLaw's division was driven back at the same time. I thought it prudent not to push farther until my other troops came up. General Hood received a severe wound soon after getting under fire and was obliged to leave the field. This misfortune occasioned some delay in our operation. Brigadier General J.T. Anderson of his division was also severely wounded and obliged to leave the field. In the same attack, General McLaws lost two of his brigadiers, General Barksdale mortally wounded, and General Semmes severely wounded, and since died of his wounds. The command was finally so disposed as to hold the ground gained on the right, with my left withdrawn to the first position of the enemy, resting at the peach orchard. During the combat of this day, 4 pieces of artillery were captured and secured by the command, and 2 regimental standards. On the following morning, our arrangements were made for renewing the attack by my right, with a view to pass around the hill occupied by the enemy on his left, and to gain it by flank and reverse attack. This would have been a slow process, probably, but I think not very difficult. A few moments after my orders for the execution of this plan were given, the commanding general joined me, and ordered a column of attack to be formed of pickets, Heath's, and part of Penn's division. The assault to be made directly at the enemy's main position, the Cemetery Hill. The distance to be passed over under the fire of the enemy's batteries, and in plain view, seemed too great to ensure great results, particularly as 2/3 of the troops to be engaged in the assault had been in a severe battle 2 days previous, Pickett's division alone being fresh. Orders were given to Major General Pickett to form his line under the best cover that he could get from the enemy's batteries, and so that the center of the assaulting column would arrive at the salient of the enemy's position. General Pickett's line to be guided and to attack the line of the enemy's defense, and General Pettigrew and Commander Heath's division moving on the same line as General Pickett. As the assault salient at the same moment, Pickett's division was arranged two brigades in the front, supported by a third brigade, and Wilcox's brigade was ordered to move in the rear of his right flank to protect it from any force that the enemy might attempt to move against it. Heath's division, under command of Brigadier General Pettigrew, was arranged in 2 lines, and these supported by part of Major General Penn's division under Major General Trimble. All the batteries of the 1st and 3rd Corps, and some of those of the 2nd, were put into position for effective fire upon the point of attack and the hill occupied by the enemy's left. Colonel Walton, Chief of Artillery of 1st Corps, and Colonel Alexander had posted our batteries and agreed with the artillery officers of the other corps upon the signal for the batteries to open. About 2 p.m., General Pickett, who had been charged with the duty of arranging the lines behind our batteries, reported that the troops were in order and on the most sheltered ground. Colonel Walton was ordered to open batteries. The signal guns were fired, and all those batteries ordered very handsomely, and apparently with effective fire. The guns on the hill at the enemy's left were soon silenced. Those at the Cemetery Hill combated us, however, very obstinately. Many of them were driven off, but fresher ones were brought up to replace them. Colonel Alexander was ordered to a point where he could best observe the effect of our fire and to give notice of the most opportune moment for our attack. Sometime after our batteries opened fire, I rode to Major James Deering's battery. It appeared that the enemy put in fresh batteries about us rapidly as the others were driven off. I concluded, therefore, that we must attack very soon, if we hoped to accomplish anything before night. I gave orders for the batteries to refill their ammunition chest and to be prepared to follow up the advance of the infantry. Upon riding over to Colonel Alexander's position, I found that he advised General Pickett that the time had arrived for the attack, and I gave the order to General Pickett to advance to the assault. I found then that our supply of ammunition was so short that the batteries could not reopen. The order of the attack, which I would not favor under better auspices, would have been revoked had I felt that I had that privilege. The advance was made in very handsome style, all the troops keeping their lines accurately, and taking the fire of the batteries with great coolness and deliberation. About halfway between our position and that of the enemy, a ravine partially sheltered our troops from the enemy's fire, where a short halt was made for rest. The advance was resumed after a moment's pause, all still in good order. The enemy's battery soon opened upon our lines with canister, and the left seemed to stagger under it. But the advance was resumed, and with some degree of steadiness. Pickett's troops did not appear to be checked by the batteries, and only halted to deliver a fire when close under musket range. Major General Anderson's division was ordered forward to support and assist the wavering columns of Pettigrew and Tremble. Pickett's troops, after delivering fire, advanced to the charge and broke their ranks and fell back in great disorder. Many more falling under enemy fire in retiring than while they were attacking. This gave the enemy time to throw his entire force upon Pickett, with a strong prospect of being able to break up his lines or destroy him before Anderson's division could reach him, which would, in its turn, have greatly exposed Anderson. He was, therefore, ordered to halt. In a few moments, the enemy, marching against both flanks and the front of Pickett's division, overpowered it and drove it back, capturing about half of those of it who were not killed or wounded. General Wright of Anderson's division, with all of the officers, was ordered to rally and collect the scattered troops behind Anderson's division. And many of my staff officers were sent to assist in the same service, expecting an attack from the enemy. I rode to the front of the batteries to reconnoiter and superintend their operations. The enemy threw forward force at the different times and from different points, but they were only feelers, and retired as soon as our batteries opened up on them. These little advances and checks were kept up until night, when the enemy retired to its stronghold, and my line was withdrawn to the Gettysburg Road on the right, and the left uniting with Lieutenant General A.P. Hill's right. After night, I received orders to make all the needful arrangements for our retreat. The orders for preparation were given, and the work was begun before daylight on the 4th. On the night of the 4th, the troops were withdrawn from our line, and my command took up the line of march, following the corps of Lieutenant General A.P. Hill. Our march was much impeded by heavy rains and excessively bad roads. We succeeded, however, in reaching the top of the mountains early in the night of the 5th. On the 6th, my command, passing to the front, marched for Hagerstown, as our exhausted men and animals were not in condition for rapid movement. I thought myself misfortune when I found that I could reach Hagerstown in time to relieve our trains at Williamsport, then seriously threatened. Reaching Hagerstown about 5 p.m., our column moved down the Sharpsburg Turnpike and encamped about 2 miles from Hagerstown. Statements of the casualties of the campaign embracing the killed, wounded, and missing have been already forwarded. I have the honor to be, Colonel, very respectfully, your most obedient servant, James Longstreet, Lieutenant General commanding 1st Army Corps.
All right, friends.
Department
So that
of
is
North
James
Virginia.
Longstreet's battle report. It's very different when you're a historian. You're looking back at these events compared to how they come out, because this is done a few months later. This is done Culpeper. This is done, not a few months, like a month, but this is done after the battle. This is him trying to remember everything. The great thing about history is that we get to see all of these and we put them together, and that's how we actually come up to what really happened. A lot of people don't realize that Anderson was supposed to advance to support and that Longstreet last minute pushed it out. But also, you notice, and this goes back to one of my first videos way back when, I actually think it's about Longstreet. Someone told me, why don't you use Longstreet's autobiography, Manassas to Appomattox? And the reason I don't do that, friends, is because you can't trust first person. These are cool to do because I like to show the mindset of the people involved. But if you use first person all the time, you're not going to get the facts. You're going to get their version of the facts. One of my favorite lines in the Bible is when Jesus says, I look for truth. And Pilate responds, we all have truth. Is yours the same as mine? Because it's true, we all have our different truths. We all view things in a different way. But, you don't have their Longstreet, not even being able to physically give the command. Of course he's not going to admit that. Because even back then, as much as Longstreet was opposed to it, he wasn't going to admit in the battle report a moment of very clear reluctance, because it would have been perceived as weakness. But this is the great thing about doing these battle reports, and this is a great thing about channels like mine and others, is that we are able to have these conversations and show people them. And I'm excited about the comments, because, we always have very productive conversations on it. But with that, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed. We're going to have Hancock's battle report out next. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We're growing every day. We're getting more people. I know there's long periods I'm gone. I do work a full-time job. I have to do that and this. I'm trying to make this more of my job, but obviously it's those watch hours. I'm starting to lose my watch hours from a year ago, so that's why it's going down. But thank you so much for joining us. Please donate to the American Preservation Fund. I'll have that linked below. Have a great day.